This video is sponsored by Manta Sleep, more on them later. This is Germany's controversial new high-speed train, the ICE-L. Built by Spanish manufacturer Talgo, it uses their unusual single-wheel design that allows for great low-floor access and lower construction costs. But at the same time, many of their recent train models have been heavily criticized for awful build quality and extremely rough rides. Combine this with some strange interior design choices left many Germans questioning if this is Germany's worst high-speed train ever. So, is this train actually as bad as many have feared? Let's go find out as we take a ride along one of Germany's most unusual railway lines to find out what the ICE-L is actually like. Hello, here from Westerland in Germany, where today we're checking out Germany's newest ICE high-speed train, the ICE-L. It's safe to say the introduction of these trains has been far from smooth, with both technical issues and lots of passenger complaints. So, let's head inside the station and check out what these trains are really like. Our journey starts here at Westerland on the popular holiday island of Sylt. But the island is also known to be very windy, which is perfectly captured by the artwork on the station front square, Traveling Giants in the Wind by Martin Folke. The station square also has a small memorial showing the history of the Sylter Inselbahn, a narrow gauge railway that once ran along the length of the island. And finally, here on the station plaza, you'll also find a large booth selling ferry tickets, because the way you get to this island is actually quite interesting, but that will make a lot more sense to explain once we head around to the other side of the station building. The station building dates back to 1927, making it almost 100 years old. And despite the fairly small size, you will find a few places to sit, a travel center, a convenience store, as well as a restaurant. The station is mostly served by regional trains, with the RE6 line providing a fast and frequent link to Hamburg, using mostly these interesting looking Bombardier Marriott pair wagons. But you also get a few extra regional trains in the summer, as well as a few short turns using things like these double-decker carriages. However, the most interesting train service here has to be the frequent car carrier trains to the mainland. And that's the cool thing about Sylt, which is the island Westerland is on. The only way to get to the mainland is by rail or by ferry. So how do you move cars? Well, one way is to put them on the train. And that's exactly what they do here, with these car shuttle trains leaving as frequently as every 30 minutes. I mean, how cool is that? Instead of having to build a road, you can just load the cars up onto the train and off you go onto the mainland. Anyway, we'll be catching an ICE over to the mainland, which should be arriving over on platform 1 very soon, so let's go over there. So I will note that I am quite curious about these Talgos, because I've already tried the DSB version, which is largely identical, apart from a few changes in composition and the interior, and I thought those were alright. Not the greatest train out there, but certainly also not as bad as I had feared from Talgo, so really looking forward to seeing what these DB ICE-Ls are like. Well, I couldn't have timed that better. Now we also get to see how they unload the train. Pretty cool stuff. And speaking of cool stuff, here comes our ICE-L, operating the inbound service from Berlin and running just a couple of minutes late. And right behind the locomotive, we get the first glimpse of the new Talgo carriages, which of course features Talgo's signature short design, with most of the carriages just being around 13 meters long, roughly half that of a more conventional design. The reason for this unusual design is that Talgo uses an articulated carriage setup, with single wheels between the carriages instead of a more traditional bogie underneath the carriage. This design makes it possible to create a fully low-floor train that is even level with low European platforms. However, this is also what makes the train so controversial, as Talgo's unique design has proven itself to often suffer greatly from poor ride quality, especially on railway lines with anything but near perfect track quality. And speaking of issues, the Talgo control cars are not fully operational yet, meaning our train will have to have a locomotive attached to the now front. Hauling us initially today is this variant of the popular Siemens Vectron locomotive, which is only capable of 160 km per hour. That's because this is one of the bimode variants of the locomotive, featuring large diesel generators allowing it to operate on unelectrified lines like the one to Westerland. Right, let's finally head on board and check out what this Talgo train really is like. First impressions are honestly not too bad. Visually, the train actually does look rather nice. The soft blue colors on the seat combined with the wood paneling helps give the train a bit more of a cozy vibe, even if the white panels and bright lights are still a bit too clinical to my taste. Overall, I think the Deutsche Bahn design feels a little more welcoming and less clinical and depressing than the darker colors on DSB's. Anyway, I found an empty seat on this not very busy train, and then departure time came, and our train did not move. We just sat at the platform with no information. Not really sure what's going on. We were meant to go around 15 minutes ago, and in the meantime we've just heard the brakes continuously being tested. They're quite loud on the Talgo. You can at least hear it in the passenger compartments quite audibly. And yeah, not moving. The doors unlocked and locked again a couple of times. Oh, now the carriage simply powered off, I guess. So yeah, I guess it'll be a while before we get going. So yeah, the carriage just went completely silent, with everything seemingly just powering off, except the emergency lighting. Which actually looks quite cozy. I wish they would leave this on all the time instead of the bright white ones. In general, the whole ICL program has been full of issues, which we will get back to later, as now our train is finally departing with a delay of around 15 minutes. I don't think they actually solved whatever the issue was, as our carriage is still seemingly turned off. There's no power in the outlets, the lights are still dimmed, and I can't hear the air conditioning. But hey, at least at the end of the day, these are still just basic carriages that you can seemingly just drag along if the Loco is working. And with our journey now well underway, let's take a closer look at the route map for today's trip. We are on board ICE train 2075, which leaves here from Westerland, travelling first along the slower regional Marsch railway line to Hamburg, where afterwards our Talgo carriages might be able to reach their maximum design speed of 230 km per hour as we travel along the newly modernized high-speed railway line towards Berlin, terminating at Gesundbrunnen station. Journey time is scheduled to be 6 hours and 5 minutes, covering 528 km, giving the train an average speed of around 87 km per hour. Our train is now travelling across the island of Sylt, mostly on the single-track railway line. That means trains have to pass each other at stations, which is why delays like ours can really mess up the timetable on this intensively used line during the summer. And just before we cross over the Hindenburgdamm, the power in our carriage came back. The Hindenburgdamm is an 11-kilometer long causeway connecting Sylt with the mainland. It opened back in 1927, and still to this day, the causeway has no proper road connection. In peak summer, around 100 trains cross the dam every day, with roughly half of those being the car carrier trains taking vehicles to and from Sylt. We are now travelling through the Waddenzee National Park with its signature marshland, tidal flats and wide open landscapes, which is even listed as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. This is certainly one of Germany's most interesting and unique railway lines. And not long after crossing over to the mainland, I noticed there was something strange going on with my tray table. That's right, it's the transition to today's video sponsor, Manta Sleep. My journey over to Sylt started very early this morning, and when you live in a northern country like Denmark, that can be a bit of a problem in summer, because by 4 AM it is already starting to get light outside. So if you're trying to get some rest on your morning commute to make YouTube videos for instance, the light and noise can be a real challenge. Plus the fact that you're basically trying to sleep in public. That's why I've really been enjoying my Manta sleep mask, which really does block out all of the light. Specifically, I've been trying out the Manta Sleep sound mask, and thanks to the high quality materials and the adjustable design, it lets you find the perfect fit without any squeezing on your face. And even better, the mask comes with built-in Bluetooth speakers, allowing you to play anything that helps you relax and cover up some of the background noise. And for my viewers, Manta has a special deal just for you. Use the link in the description and my promo code IntercitySimon to get 10% off your order. And thanks again to Manta for sponsoring this video. Next up, our train calls at Niebüll, which is as far as the car shuttle trains go. And also check out the old semaphore signals which are still in use on the Marschbahn down towards Hamburg. Right, and as we now head south towards Hamburg, let me give you a bit of background on the ICE L. Deutsche Bahn first ordered 23 of these trains in 2019, and then later in 2023 they ordered an additional 56, but there has now been talks to reduce the total order number from 79 to 60 trains. The trains were originally meant to enter service in December 2023, but following various delays and issues with the project, they didn't actually enter service until December 2025, 2 years late. Ever since then, the introduction of these carriages has been very slow. At the time of filming, only a small number of services run every day with these carriages. And it's only the carriages that are currently in passenger service. That's right, alongside the carriages, Talgo were also meant to deliver the new Class 105 locomotives. Officially, these are still meant to enter service later in 2026, but there are rumors going around that Talgo is having a lot of trouble with the locomotives, and they might be delayed even further. The delays and reliability problems are far from the only controversial thing about this train. But for now, let's take a closer look at one of the better things, the seats. They got this cool device holder table that even has a few grooves to support the device at a good viewing angle. Below it you'll find the regular tray table, which is fairly large and sturdy. Below the tray table there's a small storage pocket, as well as a personal bin between the seats in front. In the small console between the seats you'll also find individual power outlets. There's a large winged headrest which is actually rather comfortable in combination with Deutsche Bahn's signature headrest cushion. As for the rest of the seat, it's got a simple ergonomic shape with an okay amount of padding in the base as well as the back. Overall, it's not a bad seat, I'm okay with it. It's not quite up there with some of the best new seats like on the ICE 3 Neo, but it's by no means bad. The seat also offers a slight bit of recline, making it a bit more comfortable for relaxing. There's also a pretty good window blind as well as coat hooks, but strangely there seems to be no reading lights. I guess you wouldn't need one anyway, as the lights were set to clinically bright white for the remainder of the journey. I should also mention Deutsche Bahn's comfort check-in feature, because it's actually pretty neat. Basically, if you have a valid ticket in the Deutsche Bahn app, you can mark your seat as checked in. This will change the seat reservation display to occupied and show the conductor that they do not need to check your ticket manually. And if you decide to switch seats during the journey, you can even update the check-in through the app, which is a nice little feature. But a not so great feature of this train is the not so good ride quality. I have to say the ride quality on board these is a lot worse than on the DSB ones. I don't know if I just got lucky on those or it's down to the track quality here on this line, but it's definitely noticeable, and it kind of follows the trend that the Talgo design works okay to pretty okay on like smooth high-speed tracks and new lines, but as soon as you start putting it on like older lines, secondary lines where the track quality is less good, it really starts to suffer, which I really experienced in Kazakhstan. Talgo's wheel design clearly compromises on ride quality for cost savings and better accessibility, and I think in this regard the ICL actually turned out probably the best it could. It is certainly not like the recent Avril model that basically invented turbulence but for trains. But it's not only the ride quality that's average at best, the train is also loud and makes a lot of strange noises. Like, I've never heard a train hiss like that, and in general it just sounds like it's not put together well and it's struggling. Our train is now crossing over the Hochdonn Hochbrücke, taking us over the Kiel Canal, and while it is not as impressive as the nearby Rendsburg Hochbrücke I've covered a million times on the channel, this bridge is still impressive and deserves a mention in the video. Soon enough we will approach Izehoe, where we will switch to a much faster and fully electric Vectron locomotive, allowing us to finally get up to some proper high speeds. But before we get there, let's take a closer look around the train's interior. And you just saw the main benefit of Talgo, the fully low floor, even between carriages. Second class comes in a standard 2+2 layout in a mix of both airline style seating and seats around the table. And at the very rear of the train you'll find a dedicated area for bikes. The very front and back of the train is also the only part where the train is not fully low floor. The train's accessible area is located close to the onboard Bistro, offering dedicated wheelchair spots and a large accessible toilet. And thanks to the low floor design of the Talgo carriages, level boarding is available at many stations in Germany. There's also a dedicated family area on board, with both a large enclosed children's compartment but also a regular open carriage with a few paintings on the wall and dedicated space for baby buggies. The bistro is small and mostly takeaway oriented, with just 12 actual seats in the bistro for this entire 17 carriage train. And finally, behind the bistro is where you'll find the first class carriages. The seats here are largely identical to the ones in second class, but in a 2+1 layout instead, giving you more space. Overall, I think the interior visually looks nice, and in general, there's a lot of good features on board. Right, here we are, welcome to Izehoe, where we have a 10-15 minute stop to switch to a faster electric Vectron, as the diesel one hauling us from Westerland can only do 160. So here we say goodbye to our diesel Vectron that will now head off to a nearby siding. And now things get a bit strange, as here comes a Vectron from the Czech national railway operator Czech Vectron. And I will remind you, we are going nowhere near the Czech Republic today. This is also a Siemens Vectron locomotive, but specifically the variant nicknamed Thrashtron, as this is the fastest variant of the Vectron, being capable of 230 km per hour. Right, that's our locomotive change complete, and interestingly, it's a Czech Vectron Thrashtron, which is one of the few Vectrons that can do 230 km per hour, which is why I'm guessing it's on this train, because the Hamburg-Berlin Line just reopened and has been remodeled for mostly 230 km per hour. And Deutsche Bahn doesn't have any 230 km per hour Vectrons as far as I'm aware, and obviously the Talgo locomotives that were meant to go along with this ICL rake is heavily delayed. So that's why I think, despite our train going nowhere near the Czech Republic basically, that we have one of them. That's at least my best bet, that Czech Vectron has a few extra 230 km per hour Vectrons at the moment, and obviously Deutsche Bahn has no Talgo locomotives at the moment, so they have come to some sort of agreement. Our journey now continues towards Hamburg, Germany's second largest city. And not long after Izehoe, the Hamburg S-Bahn starts to appear alongside us, as we make our way past the large stabling facilities and depots on the approach to the city. From here on, we crawl slowly through the city center before arriving at Hamburg's beautiful but very congested main station, right in the heart of the city. And here, my good friend Nonstop Eurotrip was waiting to catch our train arriving. And since we were actually running a little early, I know right, incredible for Deutsche Bahn, I even had a few minutes to say hi to my good friend, before it was time to get back on board and depart once again. This time we are heading on to the recently reopened Hamburg-Berlin railway line, which has now been fully overhauled, modernizing the infrastructure including the stations and tracks, which should make this railway line more reliable and flexible. But despite a good chunk of this route now allowing for 230 km per hour, we did not reach this speed today, and I'm not really sure why, as both the carriages and locomotive should be capable of this. Anyway, at this point I was feeling a bit hungry, so I decided to visit the onboard bistro for some dinner, which honestly was very disappointing given that on the Talgos they only have a very limited menu. I mean, come on, they could not even find a third thing to microwave, instead just listing the chili con carne twice, but bigger. Well, left with not a lot of choice, I took the chili con carne back to my seat alongside a warm Coke Zero, as they don't have a working fridge for that either. It's okay, but it's not currywurst. And honestly, this Bistro situation perfectly sums up my thoughts on the ICE L. The train does not feel like an ICE at all. Everything seems specifically designed to be one step below the current ICE comfort level. You know, like the intercity trains they are mostly replacing. The Bistro is tiny and it feels like it's just there because there has to be one if the train is called an ICE. The interior is good but not quite up to the same level as something like the flagship ICE3 Neos. And the Talgo carriages themselves are nowhere near the quality or comfort of a proper ICE train set. But of course the Talgos also cost a lot less. So branding this train as an ICE and charging passengers the higher ICE fares while not really delivering what's expected from the ICE brand honestly feels a bit insulting. I really do see why this train has become so controversial among the German public. Because overall, it's an alright train with a few flaws and quirks, but it has absolutely no business being an ICE. And now, as we approach Berlin, let's talk about tickets. Fares in second class on this route start from as little as 7 euros in second class, but they are usually more like 40 to 60 depending on demand and time of booking. In the end, we arrive in Berlin Gesundbrunnen with a delay of just under 20 minutes due to temporary speed restrictions and a passenger needing to be removed by police in Büchen. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe as I try to post a new one every Sunday. And to continue your journey, why not watch my video on Austria's controversial new Chinese high-speed trains by clicking the card on screen now. Thanks again to Manta for sponsoring this video, make sure to check them out and use my promo code IntercitySimon. And thanks again to you for watching.